There comes a time in life when you must realize that you do not owe everyone an explanation. When you are young, you may feel the need to defend yourself, explain your decisions, prove your intentions, and convince people that your heart is in the right place. You may spend hours thinking about what someone said about you, wondering how you can change their opinion or make them understand your side. But as you grow older, you begin to recognize a powerful truth. People will believe what they want to believe. No matter how carefully you explain yourself, some people will still misunderstand you. No matter how much evidence you provide, some people will still question you. And no matter how much good you do, there will always be someone who finds a reason to criticize you. Wisdom is learning that you do not have to spend the rest of your life fighting against other people's opinions. Your life is not a courtroom where you must constantly defend yourself. You are not required to stand before every person who misunderstands you and present evidence of your character. Your life itself is the evidence. The way you have treated people, the sacrifices you have made, the challenges you have survived, and the values you have maintained throughout the years tell a story that no argument can completely communicate. Some people will never know the battles you fought privately. They will never know how many times you had to rebuild yourself, how many disappointments you endured, or how many difficult decisions you made when nobody was watching. Therefore, stop demanding that everyone understand your journey. They were not there for every chapter. They only see a portion of the story. Yet you sometimes give their opinion more power than your own understanding of yourself. There is tremendous freedom in allowing people to misunderstand you. This does not mean you become careless about your character or indifferent toward legitimate correction. It means you stop allowing every opinion to control your emotions. If someone criticizes you unfairly, you do not have to immediately respond. If someone creates a false story about you, you do not have to chase them down. If someone decides that you are the problem because you established a boundary, you do not have to abandon that boundary just to make them comfortable. Sometimes people become angry when they can no longer control your attention. They may accuse you of changing when the truth is that you have simply become wiser about where you invest your energy. Let them say what they want. Your responsibility is to live with integrity, not to manage every person's perception of you. As you grow older, your time becomes more valuable because you understand that life is not endless. You begin to recognize how much time was wasted on arguments that no longer matter, relationships that constantly drained you, and opinions that disappeared as quickly as they arrived. Why would you continue giving your precious years to the same things that stole your peace when you were younger? There is a season for fighting to establish yourself, but there is also a season for resting in what you have learned. You do not need to attend every disagreement. You do not need to answer every accusation. You do not need to prove that you are right every time. There are battles that can be won and still leave you exhausted. There are arguments where victory means nothing. Sometimes walking away is not weakness. It is wisdom recognizing that your peace is worth more than the satisfaction of winning an argument. The older you become, the more important it is to know yourself deeply. When you know your values, you do not need constant approval from people who do not share them. When you know your intentions, you do not have to panic every time someone questions them. When you know what you stand for, you can remain steady even when people disagree with you. Your identity should not be built on compliments, because compliments can disappear. It should not be built on popularity, because popularity can change. It should not be built on the approval of family, friends, neighbors, or strangers, because people are unpredictable. Build your confidence on the understanding that you have lived, learned, endured, grown, and become wiser through experience. You have made mistakes, but mistakes do not erase your worth. You have experienced failures, but failures do not define your entire story. You have disappointed people, and people have disappointed you, but your life continues. There is a quiet dignity in reaching a point where you no longer feel compelled to prove who you are. You can sit quietly while others talk. You can allow someone to have the wrong opinion without allowing that opinion to disturb your inner stability. You can walk away from disrespect without needing the final word. You can choose peace without feeling guilty. This is not about becoming cold or disconnected from people. It is about becoming selective with your energy. Give your attention to people who genuinely care about you. Give your words to conversations that have meaning. Give your time to things that strengthen your life. And when someone demands that you prove your worth, remember that your worth was never determined by their acceptance in the first place. As you grow older, you begin to understand that peace is not something you find by accident. It is something you must deliberately protect. When you are younger, you may tolerate unnecessary arguments, endless drama, negative conversations, and relationships that constantly disturb your mind because you believe you have to keep everyone happy. You may answer every phone call, respond to every message, explain every decision, and involve yourself in every problem around you. But eventually, experience teaches you that not everything deserves your attention. Your peace is too valuable to place in the hands of people who have no concern for what their behavior does to your life. There comes a time when you must become intentional about what you allow into your heart, your home, your mind, and your daily routine. Peace becomes powerful when you stop treating it as something optional and start treating it as something worth protecting. Protecting your peace does not mean that you stop caring about people. It means that you stop allowing other people's chaos to become your responsibility. There will always be someone with a problem, someone with an opinion, someone who wants an argument, or someone who expects you to solve what they refuse to solve themselves. If you make yourself available for every crisis, you will eventually have no energy left for your own life. You can care without carrying everything. You can love people without allowing them to control your emotions. You can listen without becoming consumed by their problems. You can help without destroying yourself in the process. Wisdom teaches you that compassion needs boundaries. Without boundaries, even good intentions can become a source of exhaustion. You must also protect your peace from unnecessary conversations. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Some conversations only create confusion. Some people do not communicate to understand, they communicate to provoke. They are not looking for truth, they are looking for a reaction. If you respond to every provocation, you give away control of your emotional state. One careless sentence from another person can disturb your entire day if you allow it to enter deeply into your mind. This is why silence becomes so valuable. Sometimes the wisest thing you can say is nothing. You do not have to respond immediately. You do not have to defend yourself against every accusation. You do not have to participate in gossip simply because someone invited you into it. You can listen, recognize what is happening, and choose not to become part of it. Your environment also matters. The people you spend the most time around can influence the way you think, speak, and feel. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, complaints, jealousy, conflict, and bitterness, eventually those things begin to affect your own outlook. You may find yourself becoming irritated more easily, worrying about things that never mattered before, or losing appreciation for the simple blessings in your life. This is why your later years should become more intentional. You do not need a large circle, you need a healthy one. You do not need people around you every moment. You need people who respect your boundaries when they are present. Choose relationships where there is mutual respect, honesty, kindness, and room to breathe. There is no shame in creating distance from environments that continually disturb your peace. Protecting your peace also means learning to stop replaying old situations in your mind. Sometimes the person disturbing your peace is no longer in your life, but you continue allowing their memory to control your emotions. You remember what they said. You remember what they did. You remember how they treated you. You imagine what you should have said or what you wish you had done differently. Years can pass while the mind continues fighting battles that ended long ago. But you cannot experience peace while constantly reopening yesterday. There are things you must accept without receiving an apology. There are questions that may never receive answers. There are people who may never admit what they did. Your peace cannot depend on someone else becoming the person you wish they would be. Sometimes you have to close the door yourself, not because everything was resolved, but because you have decided that your future deserves more attention than your past. Your peace becomes stronger when you stop trying to control things that were never within your control. You cannot control what people think about you. You cannot control how someone behaves. You cannot control whether someone appreciates your sacrifices. You cannot control every change that comes with age, every disappointment, or every unexpected event. But you can control your response. You can choose not to answer anger with anger. You can choose to step away instead of escalating an argument. You can choose to spend your morning in gratitude instead of beginning the day with complaints. You can choose quiet reflection instead of constant noise. You can choose meaningful relationships instead of endless social pressure. The goal is not to create a life where nothing difficult ever happens. The goal is to become wise enough to know what deserves your energy and what deserves your silence. As you enter the later chapters of life, remember that peace is not laziness, isolation, or weakness. Peace is strength under control. It is the ability to remain steady when circumstances are unstable. It is the discipline to protect your mind from unnecessary fear. It is the maturity to walk away from conversations that have no purpose. It is the courage to say no when saying yes would cost you your well-being. It is the wisdom to recognize that you do not have to live in constant reaction to the world around you. Your home should become a place where your spirit can breathe. Your relationship should not constantly require you to defend your worth. Your days should contain moments where you can sit quietly, reflect on your life, appreciate what you have learned, and enjoy the present without being pulled into everyone else's conflicts. The older you become, the more clearly you should understand that not everything deserves access to you. Protect your peace, because every day you spend in unnecessary turmoil is a day of your life that you will never receive again. As you grow older, you begin to understand that silence can communicate what words cannot. When you are young, you may believe that every situation requires an explanation, every accusation requires an answer, and every disagreement must end with you having the final word. You may feel uncomfortable when someone misunderstands you, so you immediately begin explaining yourself. You may feel offended when someone criticizes you, so you respond before thinking. But experience teaches you something different. Not every statement deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your attention. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. There is a maturity that comes when you can hear something you do not like and remain calm. You can recognize an insult without becoming insulting. You can recognize disrespect without becoming disrespectful. You can allow someone to speak while refusing to allow their words to control your emotions. Silence becomes powerful when it comes from self-control rather than fear. Staying silent does not mean that you have nothing to say. Sometimes you have plenty to say, but you understand that saying it will not improve the situation. You know the truth, but you do not need to force someone to accept it. You know your intentions, but you do not need to defend them endlessly. You know what happened, but you do not need to spend hours convincing someone who has already decided what they believe. There is strength in knowing that your truth does not become less true simply because someone refuses to acknowledge it. You can walk away from an argument without feeling defeated. You can end a conversation without proving your point. You can remain quiet while someone talks about you, knowing that time has a way of revealing what words often hide. Your responsibility is not to control every person's opinion. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the character you have chosen to build. Silence also protects you from speaking out of emotion. Anger can make intelligent people say foolish things. Hurt can make peaceful people become bitter. Disappointment can make you speak words that you later wish you could take back. This is why learning to pause is so important. When someone provokes you, you do not have to respond immediately. Take a breath, step away, think. Ask yourself whether your response will solve anything or simply create another problem. Sometimes the greatest victory is refusing to say the sentence that would have started another year of conflict. You do not have to respond while your emotions are at their highest. Give yourself time to regain control. A moment of silence can save you from hours, days, or even years of regret. As you become older, you should become more careful with your words, because you understand that words can build relationships, but they can also destroy them. There are also people who intentionally provoke you because they want access to your emotions. They know exactly what to say to make you angry. They bring up your past, they question your decisions, they criticize your choices. They may even create situations simply to see whether you will react. If you have not learned the power of silence, they can control you without ever touching you. All they need to do is say something that pushes the right button, and suddenly your peace is gone. But when you learn to remain silent, you remove their power. They may continue talking, but you no longer dance according to their rhythm. They may expect an argument, but you give them calmness. They may expect anger, but you give them distance. They may expect you to defend yourself, but you simply continue with your life. Silence becomes a boundary that says, without words, that you are no longer available for unnecessary conflict. There is a difference between silence and suppressing your truth. Wisdom does not mean remaining quiet when something genuinely needs to be addressed. There are moments when you must speak, establish a boundary, correct a serious misunderstanding, or defend someone who cannot defend themselves. But even when you speak, you do not have to speak from rage. You can speak with clarity. You can be firm without being cruel. You can disagree without becoming disrespectful. You can say no without giving a long explanation. You can tell someone that their behavior is unacceptable without attacking their entire character. Mature communication is not about saying everything that enters your mind. It is about knowing what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, and when saying nothing is wiser. Your age should teach you that the goal of communication is not always to win. Sometimes the goal is to preserve truth, dignity, and peace. As you enter the later years of your life, let your silence become intentional. Do not announce every plan. Do not reveal every private matter. Do not tell everyone what is happening inside your home. Do not make your personal struggles public simply because you want people to understand you. Some things are sacred because they are private. You do not need an audience for every chapter of your life. You can quietly work on yourself, quietly heal, quietly grow, quietly enjoy your family, quietly pursue what matters to you, and quietly become the person you were meant to become. There is something powerful about no longer needing to announce your every move. Your life does not become more meaningful because more people know about it. Sometimes the deepest growth happens where nobody is watching. Silence can also help you hear yourself again. When your life is filled with constant opinions, notifications, arguments, gossip, and outside noise, you can lose touch with your own thoughts. You begin making decisions based on what other people expect instead of what you genuinely value. But when you create moments of quiet, you begin to reflect. You remember what matters. You recognize what you have learned. You begin to separate genuine responsibilities from unnecessary pressure. You realize that you do not need to follow every trend, answer every message, attend every gathering, or participate in every conversation. You can sit quietly and appreciate the years you have lived. You can think about the lessons hidden inside your mistakes. You can be grateful for the people who remained. You can recognize how much you have survived without needing anyone else to applaud you. The power of silence is ultimately the power of self-control. Anyone can react, anyone can shout, anyone can insult someone who insulted them first. Anyone can expose private information when they are angry. But it takes discipline to remain calm when you have every opportunity to react. It takes wisdom to walk away when your pride tells you to stay. It takes maturity to let another person have the last word while you keep your peace. Your silence can become a declaration that your life is no longer controlled by every person who knows how to provoke you. You have lived long enough to understand that some conversations end when you stop participating in them. Some conflicts disappear when you stop feeding them. Some people lose interest when they realize they can no longer control your emotions. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing, turn around, and continue living your life. As you grow older, you begin to understand that taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is a responsibility. For many years, you may have spent your strength taking care of everyone else. You raised children, supported family members, helped friends, carried responsibilities, solved problems, worked through difficult seasons, and sacrificed your own comfort so that other people could have better lives. You may have become so accustomed to putting everyone else first that you forgot to ask yourself what you need. But there comes a point when you must turn some of that attention back toward yourself. Your life still matters. Your peace still matters. Your dreams still matter. Your well-being should not disappear simply because you have spent many years serving others. There is nothing wrong with entering a season where you become more intentional about caring for your own mind, body, emotions, relationships, and purpose. Focus on yourself by becoming aware of what is happening inside you. Do not allow years to pass without examining the condition of your heart. Ask yourself what has changed within you. Are you becoming more peaceful or more bitter, more grateful or more resentful, more patient or more easily irritated? Are you still carrying disappointments that happened decades ago? Are you allowing old wounds to determine how you treat people today? Growing older gives you an opportunity to become wiser, but age alone does not create wisdom. Wisdom comes when you are willing to learn from what you have experienced. Every mistake, disappointment, success, loss, and difficult season contains something that can teach you. Do not simply count your years, learn from them. Your experiences should produce greater understanding, not simply more memories. Taking care of your mind becomes especially important when you enter a quieter season of life. Do not fill your mind constantly with negativity, gossip, fear, and other people's problems. Be selective about what you watch, listen to, discuss, and repeatedly think about. Your mind is influenced by what you continually allow into it. If you spend every day focusing on what is wrong with the world, eventually you may stop noticing what is right in your own life. If you constantly compare yourself with others, you may forget to appreciate your own journey. If you repeatedly revisit everything that went wrong, you may lose sight of everything that went right. Give yourself permission to enjoy simple things again. Enjoy a quiet morning. Enjoy meaningful conversation. Enjoy your surroundings. Enjoy the people who genuinely love you. You do not need constant excitement to have a meaningful life. Sometimes the deepest satisfaction is found in ordinary moments that you once overlooked. Your physical well-being also deserves attention. You cannot continue treating yourself as though your body has unlimited strength. The body changes with time, and wisdom means recognizing those changes rather than fighting against reality. Rest when you need rest. Respect your body's limitations. Make your daily life more intentional instead of constantly pushing yourself to exhaustion. Your body has carried you through many chapters, and it deserves care rather than neglect. Do not wait until you are completely exhausted to realize that you should have slowed down. Taking care of yourself allows you to remain present for the things that still matter. Your later years should not be defined by constantly proving how much you can endure. They can be defined by understanding how to live with greater balance, gratitude, and awareness. Focus on your relationships as well, but become more selective about them. You do not need to maintain every relationship simply because it has existed for a long time. History alone does not make a relationship healthy. Some connections belong to a previous chapter of your life. Some people were important for a season, but are no longer aligned with the person you have become. That does not mean you must hate them. It means you can accept that people change, circumstances change, and relationships change. Do not allow guilt to force you to remain connected to people who continually disrespect you, manipulate you, or disturb your peace. At this stage of life, relationships should bring honesty, respect, understanding, and mutual care. You should be able to sit with someone without feeling that you must constantly defend yourself or perform for their approval. There is also a difference between focusing on yourself and becoming self-centered. Focusing on yourself means taking responsibility for your own life. It means examining your behavior before constantly blaming others. It means asking what you can improve instead of only pointing out what everyone else is doing wrong. It means becoming disciplined about your time, your words, your habits, and your emotional reactions. You cannot control everyone around you, but you can continue developing yourself. Even in old age, there are attitudes that can be corrected, habits that can be changed, knowledge that can be gained, and wisdom that can be developed. Never tell yourself that you are too old to grow. As long as you are alive, there is still room for refinement. Your later years can also become a season of rediscovering purpose. Perhaps you spent much of your life working for survival. Perhaps you were busy raising a family, building a career, meeting responsibilities, and helping others. Now you may have more time to think about what gives your life meaning. Purpose does not disappear when a particular job ends or when certain responsibilities become smaller. Purpose can take different forms. It can be encouraging younger people. It can be sharing lessons you learned through experience. It can be creating something meaningful. It can be strengthening your family. It can be serving others without losing yourself in their problems. It can simply be living with wisdom and becoming an example of what maturity looks like. Your value is not measured only by productivity. Sometimes your greatest contribution is the wisdom and character you demonstrate through the way you live. Do not spend your later years constantly looking backward and wishing you had become someone different. Learn to appreciate the person you have become while continuing to grow. You may have made decisions you regret. You may have trusted people who betrayed you. You may have wasted time, you may have missed opportunities, but your mistakes do not have to become the final definition of your life. You can take responsibility without living in shame. You can acknowledge what you should have done differently without allowing regret to consume your present. The goal is not to pretend that everything was perfect. The goal is to use everything you have experienced to become wiser, calmer, and more intentional. Focus on your own well-being by giving yourself permission to live at a different pace. You do not have to compete with younger people. You do not have to prove that you can keep up with everyone. You do not have to measure your life according to someone else's achievements. Your journey has its own timing. Comparison can steal the appreciation of everything you have already accomplished. Look at your own life honestly and recognize the distance you have traveled. There were seasons you thought you would never survive, yet you survived them. There were problems you thought would destroy you, yet you learned from them. There were moments when you did not know what to do, yet somehow you found a way forward. That history should give you perspective. You have already overcome things that once seemed impossible. And as you continue through this season, remember that focusing on yourself means becoming a better caretaker of the life you have been given. Protect your mind from unnecessary negativity. Protect your body through responsible care. Protect your heart by releasing bitterness. Protect your time by becoming selective. Protect your relationships through healthy boundaries. Protect your purpose by refusing to waste your remaining years trying to impress people who are not walking your journey. You have spent enough time proving that you can carry with responsibilities. Now learn to carry wisdom, learn to enjoy the quiet, learn to appreciate yourself without needing constant recognition, learn to become comfortable with your own company, your own thoughts, and your own journey. As you grow older, one of the greatest forms of wisdom is learning that you cannot carry everything with you into the next chapter. There are memories that deserve to be remembered, lessons that deserve to be learned, and experiences that deserve to shape your wisdom, but there are also burdens that must be released. Many people grow older physically while remaining trapped emotionally in events that happened years ago. They continue replaying the same betrayal, the same disappointment, the same argument, the same mistake, or the same missed opportunity. They carry conversations that ended decades ago as though they are still happening today. But the past has already taken its place in history. You cannot change what happened, but you can decide how much power it will have over the rest of your life. There comes a time when you must stop carrying yesterday into every tomorrow. Perhaps someone hurt you deeply. Perhaps someone you trusted disappointed you. Perhaps a relationship ended in a way you never expected. Perhaps someone took advantage of your kindness, betrayed your trust, or treated you unfairly after everything you had done for them. These experiences can leave deep marks on a person. It is natural to remember them, and it is natural to feel pain when you think about them. But there is a difference between remembering what happened and allowing what happened to continue controlling your present. You cannot go back and force someone to become more honest. You cannot make someone apologize sincerely. You cannot rewrite the decisions they made. You cannot change the words they spoke or the opportunities you missed. What you can do is decide that their actions will not continue stealing years from you. They already took the moment when they hurt you. Do not give them your future as well. Sometimes the hardest thing to release is regret about your own decisions. You may look back and think about what you should have done differently. You may remember opportunities you did not recognize, choices you wish you could change, relationships you wish you had handled differently, or years you believe you wasted. With age, these thoughts can become louder because you have enough experience to see things that you could not see when you were younger. But you must remember that you made many of your decisions with the knowledge you had at that time. You did not know everything then that you know now. You were learning while living. You were making decisions while growing. You were trying to survive circumstances you had never experienced before. Wisdom gives you the ability to look backward and understand your mistakes, but maturity teaches you not to destroy yourself because of them. Learn from your former self instead of constantly condemning your former self. There is also a danger in holding on to resentment. Resentment can make the past feel permanently present. You may wake up thinking about someone who hurt you. You may sit quietly and remember what they did. You may imagine what you would say if you ever saw them again. You may wish they could experience the pain they caused you. But resentment often punishes the person carrying it more than the person who caused the original wound. The other person may have moved on while you continue fighting the same battle inside your mind. You cannot build a peaceful future while constantly feeding anger from the past. Releasing resentment does not mean saying that what happened was acceptable. It does not mean forgetting the lesson. It means refusing to remain emotionally imprisoned by the person or event. You can acknowledge the wrong without allowing the wrong to become your identity. Forgiveness is part of this process, but forgiveness does not always mean restoring a relationship. Sometimes forgiveness means releasing your demand for revenge. It means refusing to allow bitterness to control your character. You can forgive someone and still maintain distance. You can forgive someone and still remember the lesson. You can forgive someone without trusting them again. Trust may need to be rebuilt through consistent behavior, and sometimes that trust will never return. But your heart does not have to remain consumed by hatred. You can choose to move forward without carrying the desire to punish someone emotionally. You can decide that your future will not be organized around what another person did to you. Your peace does not require their presence, their apology, or their approval. You must also release the need to live according to an old version of yourself. There may be things you used to believe that you no longer believe. There may be habits you once had that no longer belong in your life. There may be environments you once enjoyed that no longer bring you peace. There may be goals you pursued when you were younger that no longer represent what you truly value. Do not be afraid to admit that you have changed. Growth requires change. You are not supposed to remain exactly the same person throughout your entire life. The experiences you have lived through should have taught you something. Your priorities may become different. Your definition of success may change. What once seemed extremely important may become insignificant. What once looked ordinary may become precious. Do not allow your past identity to dictate your present life. There are also old battles you must stop fighting because they no longer matter. Maybe you are still trying to prove that you were right in an argument that happened years ago. Maybe you are still angry because someone never recognized your contribution. Maybe you are still trying to make people understand how much you sacrificed for them. Maybe you are waiting for someone to finally acknowledge that they treated you unfairly. But ask yourself what you will gain if they finally admit it. Will it restore the years? Will it change the past? Will it give you back the peace you lost? Sometimes you have to stop waiting for someone else to close a chapter that only you can close. You can decide that the conversation is over even if the other person never understands your side. You can decide that you have learned enough from the situation and that you no longer need to revisit it. Your past should become a teacher, not a prison. Every difficult experience can teach you something about people, boundaries, patience, responsibility, choices, and yourself. The person who betrayed you may have taught you to recognize warning signs. The failure you experience may have taught you discipline. The relationship that ended may have taught you what you will and will not accept in the future. The mistake you made may have revealed an area where you needed to grow. Even painful experiences can become sources of wisdom when you stop asking only, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What did this teach me?" The lesson does not erase the pain, but it gives the pain meaning. You stop seeing yourself only as someone who was wounded and begin seeing yourself as someone who learned, survived, and became wiser. Do not let your later years become a museum of old disappointments. Your mind should not be filled entirely with stories about what people did wrong. There are still moments happening right now. There are still people worth appreciating. There are still things worth learning. There are still mornings to enjoy, conversations to have, places to see, ideas to explore, and meaningful moments to experience. If you spend every present moment staring at yesterday, you will miss the life that is still in front of you. The past deserves its place, but it does not deserve the whole room. Give yourself permission to experience today without constantly comparing it to what happened before. Releasing the past also means releasing the guilt of not being able to save everyone. You may have spent years trying to help family members, friends, co-workers, or people you loved. You may have given advice that they ignored. You may have offered support that was not appreciated. You may have tried to rescue people from consequences they needed to experience themselves. Eventually, you must understand that every person has responsibility for their own choices. You can love people without controlling their lives. You can offer wisdom without forcing them to follow it. You can help when you are able without sacrificing your entire peace. Sometimes letting go means accepting that you cannot live someone else's life for them. The years ahead deserve the version of you that has learned from everything behind you. Carry the wisdom, but release the weight. Remember the lessons, but stop reliving the wounds. Respect your history, but do not become trapped inside it. There is no need to spend the rest of your life proving that someone was wrong, regretting every mistake, or replaying every painful moment. You have already lived through those chapters. They taught you, they shaped you, they may have strengthened you. But they do not have to control what comes next. The past can remain behind you, while the wisdom it gave you continues to walk with you. As you grow older, you begin to understand that life is not only about how much you can accomplish for yourself, but about what your life ultimately means to the people who come after you. There is a season when you spend your energy building a career, raising a family, establishing yourself, meeting responsibilities, and trying to create stability. But eventually, another question begins to matter. What will remain because I lived? This is where purpose becomes deeper than achievement. You may no longer be interested in impressing people, competing with others, or collecting recognition. You begin to care more about meaning. You want your years to count. You want the wisdom you gain through difficult experiences to become useful to someone else. You want your life to communicate something greater than possessions, titles, accomplishments, or status. Never believe that growing older means your purpose has ended. Your responsibilities may change, your pace may change, and the way you contribute may change, but your value does not disappear. Society often places too much attention on youth and makes people feel that their most important years are behind them once they reach a certain age. But experience creates something that cannot be purchased quickly. Perspective. You have seen people rise and fall. You have experienced seasons of abundance and seasons of difficulty. You have learned that some things that looked important were temporary, while things you once overlooked became priceless. You have made decisions and lived with their consequences. You have learned about patience, relationships, loss, responsibility, forgiveness, and perseverance. That knowledge has value. There are people who may benefit from what took you decades to learn. Your purpose in later years does not have to look like your purpose when you were younger. You do not have to force yourself into the same ambitions. You do not have to prove that you can still compete with people who are at a completely different stage of life. You can become more intentional about where you invest your energy. Perhaps your purpose is to encourage your children and grandchildren. Perhaps it is to mentor someone who needs direction. Perhaps it is to share the lessons you learned through your experiences. Perhaps it is to serve your community, create something meaningful, strengthen your family, or simply become an example of wisdom and character. Purpose is not always found in a large platform. Sometimes purpose is found in one conversation that changes someone's direction, one person you encourage, or one generation you help prepare for what lies ahead. Legacy begins with the way you live when nobody is applauding. Many people think legacy is about leaving behind money, property, businesses, awards, or achievements. Those things can have value, but they are not the whole story. The greatest legacy may be found in the character you developed and the character you inspired in others. People may forget exactly what you owned, but they may remember how you treated them. They may remember that you were available when they needed wisdom. They may remember the way you handled difficult situations. They may remember that you remained calm when everyone else was panicking. They may remember that you taught them to work hard, forgive, stand with integrity, and keep going when life became difficult. Your behavior becomes a lesson even when you never intended to teach one. This is why your later years should be lived with greater intention. Do not waste them trying to impress people who will forget the argument tomorrow. Do not spend your remaining energy competing with people who are not even running the same race. Do not measure your worth by how much attention you receive. At this stage, you should be asking deeper questions. What values do I want to pass on? What lessons have I learned that could help someone else avoid unnecessary pain? What kind of person do I want people to remember? What atmosphere do I create when I enter a room? Do people feel peace around me, or do they feel tension? Do my words build people up, or do they constantly criticize? Do my actions reflect the wisdom I claim to possess? These questions can transform the way you approach the years ahead. Your legacy is also built through the people closest to you. The way you speak to your family matters. The way you handle disagreement matters. The way you respond to mistakes matters. Younger people are watching more than they are listening. You can tell them to be patient, but if they constantly see you reacting with anger, the lesson becomes confusing. You can tell them to value family, but if you spend every conversation complaining about people, they will learn something different. You can tell them to forgive, but if you spend years holding grudges, they will remember the contradiction. Your life teaches even when your mouth is closed. This is why personal growth never becomes unnecessary. The older you become, the more powerful your example can become. There is also great dignity in becoming a source of wisdom without becoming controlling. Your experience may give you insight, but that does not mean everyone must live exactly as you live. Younger generations will make different choices. They will face different circumstances. They may approach life differently from you. Instead of demanding that they copy your life, teach them principles that can help them make wise decisions of their own. Share what you learned without using your experience as a weapon. Speak when your wisdom can help, and remain silent when someone needs to discover a lesson through their own experience. True wisdom does not need to dominate. It guides without forcing. It gives direction while respecting another person's responsibility to choose. Your later years can also become a season of gratitude. You have lived through moments that once seemed impossible. You have experienced people entering your life and people leaving it. You have watched circumstances change. You have survived days you thought you could not survive. When you look back, you may realize that many things you once considered disasters eventually became lessons. Gratitude does not mean pretending that life was easy. It means recognizing that despite everything you faced, there is still something worth appreciating. You are still here. There are still lessons to share. There are still relationships to nurture. There are still opportunities to make someone's life better. Gratitude shifts your attention from everything you lost toward the value of what remains. Purpose also means refusing to become passive simply because you are older. Rest is important, but retirement from one responsibility does not mean retirement from meaningful living. You can continue learning, you can read, you can teach, you can create, you can mentor, you can serve, you can strengthen relationships. You can develop interests that you never had time to explore before. You can become more present with the people you love. There may be things you postponed for years because responsibilities came first. Now you may have an opportunity to give some attention to them. Your life does not have to become smaller simply because your pace becomes slower. Sometimes a slower life allows you to see things that a hurried life could never reveal. Legacy is not something you build on the final day of your life. It is being built every day through your decisions. Every conversation contributes to it. Every relationship contributes to it. Every act of kindness contributes to it. Every time you choose patience over anger, integrity over convenience, forgiveness over bitterness, and wisdom over reaction, you are shaping the story people will remember. You do not need to announce that you are building a legacy. Simply live in a way that makes your life worth remembering. Let your presence bring stability. Let your words carry wisdom. Let your actions demonstrate character. Let your home become a place where people feel respected and valued. And when you focus on purpose, you stop being obsessed with how much time you have left and become more concerned with what you will do with the time you have. You cannot control the number of years ahead of you, but you can control the quality of the life you live within them. You can choose to spend those years complaining about what has changed, or you can use your experience to understand what still matters. You can spend your time trying to prove that you are important, or you can quietly become useful. You can chase recognition, or you can create impact. You can remain trapped in old disappointments, or you can become a source of wisdom for those who are still finding their way. Your age is not the end of your story. It is another chapter in which your experience, character, wisdom, and choices can become a lasting influence on the lives that come after you.